Coach, I'm wondering about the offseason and some of the work that the tackles and some of the guys were able to get after being limited in some stretches for spring. How would you assess how that went and what everybody was able to do?
Yeah, summer was great. We were able to get, I think we had 11 or 12, somewhere around there, quote unquote OTAs, right, where you're able to get on the field with the guys, and there's no offense versus defense work. Everything's on air, which that is what it is. But it was great to get out and do some install and just get the guys working together. That's the biggest thing. We have some experienced guys. I mean, guys who've played a lot of reps. They just haven't played a lot of reps together, and so coming out of spring, one of the focuses for the summer was just to get guys where they're working in combination with one another, so they can get to know each other a little bit. So it was good, very productive.
Obviously, a lot of the attention has gone to the 4 transfers that came in the offseason, projected to be starters. How important is it for you guys to develop competitive depth with some of the younger guys that have not played a lot of football at Florida State, and which of those guys have stood out to you in the spring and the offseason?
Anytime that you have depth, it's a critical component to your success. I mean, you have to have guys that are ready to play, guys that are preparing to play, and that's one of the challenges when you're in that role is preparing like a starter, even though you may not be the starter, but you have to prepare like the starter. If you don't prepare like the starter, you'll never, when your opportunity comes, you won't be ready for it. So, but the guys like, Lucas Simmons is a guy that jumps to mind right off the bat, who had a great spring and really took advantage of the opportunity that he was given this spring, or that, just happened this spring with some of the limited action that the other guys got, and Lucas took full advantage of that. I think he's really, positioned himself to be a guy that we can continue to count on as we move forward. And then Andre Otto, he'd be the other, one of these other young guys that's really stepped up, had a great spring. Really excited about him. Jaden Todd, took a lot of reps this spring and did a really nice job of developing, as the spring went on. And then Jonathan Daniels, those guys are. Jonathan's, another guy who there was times where every one of those guys, at one point or another during the spring, took reps with the ones, right? And they took advantage of it, and they really, do they have work to do? Yeah, everybody's got work to do. But those are guys who we feel like coming, out of the summer have done a nice job in that regard. So.
Okay. Pettis and Gunnar Hansen were a little banged up during spring practice. What have you seen from them as they've gotten back to the
Well, maybe not so much.
Yeah, just the daily focus, the daily attention to detail that those guys bring. They're veteran dudes. They've played a lot of football. Again, the biggest thing with those guys was just getting them working in combinations with, the other guys on the line, with Adrian and with Richie, and, those guys working even, just listening to Luke's voice, at center, or Andre, whoever's been in, just working in concert with one another. That's the biggest thing. And but they're veteran dudes. They don't have the learning curve is a lot quicker with those guys because of their experience. So it's been a good summer for both of them.
What is it that Luke brings at the center position that makes him well in depth?
Well, experience. I mean, and Luke's an alpha. I mean, Luke is a real dude. I'm really happy and thankful and grateful that he's with us. And when we did our research on him with the coaches from Wake Forest, who did a great job with Luke. I mean, he's had really good football coaches, and he's a sponge. But when we did our research on him, he is exactly who they said he was, which is awesome. I love him. I think he's got tremendous leadership. He leads by example and verbally, right? One of the things that came up during our research of him was Coach said that, you're going to love him because, and understand where I'm coming from with this, is that he's not afraid of confrontational leadership. So what does that mean? Which is a dying art right now. A lot of times people worry about conflict. Conflict can be good, right, as long as it's healthy. You know what I'm saying? But having the ability to really hold somebody accountable, right? And Luke's not afraid to do that, which is a great trait to have, particularly when you got the ball in your hand. And I think everybody on the football team, he's earned their respect. Certainly in our room, for sure, 100% on the offense. I would say everybody on the team respects the guy because of what he's done, on the field as a player and all that stuff, but also in the locker room and just the chemistry that he's brought. He's a glue guy, which is when you can combine a guy who's not afraid to hold somebody accountable, but is also a glue guy. That's what he is. You know what I mean? And obviously he comes from a football family. I mean, going back his grandfather was the head coach of the Washington Redskins at one time, and his dad played in college. He's got brothers who played in college. I mean, he comes from a football family, so it's in his bloodline. You know what I mean? So.
How much did Adrian help you personally instill stuff in these guys? Obviously, he had a great deal of familiarity with you from a prior institution.
Yeah, the familiarity piece of it was really beneficial for everybody. For everybody in the room. And Adrian, I'm really proud, super proud of Adrian. The growth that he's had over the course of the last, 5 years, because it's been my 5th year with him. It's been just remarkable, and you're talking about a guy also who had to overcome a season-ending injury. He lost a season to an ACL, which I think really was a true blessing in disguise in the way that he approached it, going through that at UCF. And he's just like really mature, grown up, he's like grown man, you know what I mean? And I think everybody in the room has benefited from his experience in the offense and the leadership that he's provided, as well as just his play on the field has been really, I'm really pleased with him.
Up the event in Charlotte, Richie mentioned that Micah's got a big personality. He's almost as big as he is as a human being. Is he the same way in the room? What's it like coaching Pedersen?
Yeah, Micah's first of all, he's a tremendously talented dude. He's got again a lot of experience, and came from a very a great offensive system. His O-line coach, a really good friend of mine from Ole Miss, that did a great job with Micah. So he's brings that to the table, right? So he's got a confidence level about him because he's done it, at a high level. So I enjoy working with him. The biggest thing for him right now is just developing that continuity. That we didn't get it in the spring because he was kind of limited in the spring, but now it's going to be about developing the continuity within the unit as well as within the offense and as a whole. Yeah, he's got a great personality. He's, got some jokes and whatnot, but I enjoy working with him.
Richie also called Gunner, I think, twitchy. I think was what
Yeah.
he used. What is he like as a tackle? What have you seen from him?
Yeah, I think that's a good description. He's explosive in his movements. He's got a sense of urgency, getting out of his stance, right? Which whether you're talking about in pass setting or coming off the ball and striking people, he's got some explosive movement to him that you want to see. Again, here's a guy who's played a ton of football at a high level and has had success with it, and so he's been a huge addition for us. And obviously he was limited a little bit in the spring, but it'd be good again to get those guys working together. That's going to be the biggest thing as we go forward. It's just developing that chemistry and the continuity, consistency within the unit. So.
You know what that group is supposed to do when it comes smells on offense or offensive line groups. Do you feel like those 5 guys that we're going to talk about are fully capable of doing everything that offensive field?
Yeah, that's why we got them here. You know what I mean? And that's it's not just those 5 guys, right? We got a bunch of guys who are going into fall camp with an opportunity to show us and show their teammates, more importantly, show each other that they're ready to be guys who can be counted on. You know what I mean? And so it's not just those 5. I mean, it takes a whole unit to get this thing done. But that's why we brought those guys in. You know, and even the new additions. You know, with Josh Raymond and Jalen Matthews, who are guys that came in, you know, through the portal there back in May. We're excited about their addition. We're excited about the freshmen that we brought in. You know, that we think are going to be players down the road, but it's going to take the whole unit to get this thing done. So.
It's Andre Otto, the guys that you got the point of his out here. Is he a guy that's taking a pretty good step forward and definitely fits into that depth?
Yeah, 100%. Otto is he's probably, and I think anybody on the team would tell you the same thing, just in terms of his demeanor, his mentality, his approach. Every day he you know, Coach Norvell says, hey, our objective, right, is to get better every day. That's our objective as a program, right? And what does that require? That requires that every day you're kind of bringing, but you're bringing your best every day. And that's what Otto tries to do every day, you know, and that's hard. That's not easy to do on a consistent level, right? But that's what Otto tries to bring to the table every day. He tries to bring his best just in everything that he does, his approach, his demeanor, his work ethic, physicality, all of it. So we're excited about him for sure.
Obviously, you're very familiar with the offense as Gus wants to run it, but just from an outsider who's asking, how does tempo impact the way you coach? Like, for example, here years ago, Jimbo Fisher ran one of the slowest tempos. That would be one way. This is another way. How does it impact the way that you prepare the guys?
Well, the first thing is it's something that you have to demand from the get-go, right? So, you know, there's a saying in coaching that you'd rather say whoa than go, okay? So that's how we got to approach it from the start, right? Is that you have to have put the emphasis on the tempo right out the gates. And then if you want to dial it back, you can dial it back, but it's tough to go the other way around. So that's the first part of it but it's also in you know, it starts in our training in the weight room and how we train in the weight room. You know, we're training for that style of play, right? And you know, it's the tip of the spear here is Coach Norvell, right? His tempo at practice is freaking, and that guy's on go all the time, you know. So it's not just a practice mode or a game mode. It's really a way of life around here, you know, is that everything's done with that tempo in mind, okay? There are certain things that we have to do schematically when you're dealing with tempo, and some of the things that we try to accomplish from an offensive perspective in our tempo plays, right? But our offense is really built to go at a 2-minute pace the entire game. Why do we do that? Well, you do that to wear the opponent down. You do that to challenge them physically, to challenge their conditioning level, right? To challenge their mental toughness, okay? And staying locked in. But also, sometimes it'll limit what defensive looks you will see because of the speed at which you're operating. So there's a lot of benefits from the tempo standpoint. Now, we also believe in the whole idea of saying we don't ever want to hurry up to screw up, right? So there's like a fine line you want to walk in there, right? And that's where the experience level comes in as well with guys. You know, when guys have tremendous level of experience of running offensive systems, right? That helps because they've seen things. They can predict a little bit better what a defense is going to do. But we don't ever want to get in a situation where we're hurrying up the screw up, but we want to press the tempo at all times.
Where do you land on rotating offensive linemen in game? Is that something you've done in your career? Is that something you prefer not to do?
I'm more of a ride or die type guy. So, when I was a player and I earned the opportunity to be the starter, okay, I didn't want anybody taking my reps, right? And now, I also believe in the fact that, hey, if you'd love to have, 10 guys that you feel like you can win with. I've never had 10 at one time. There's always been some developmental guys along the way, right? You got to have 8, right? So in our offense, you got to sit there and say, okay, we need to have 3 tackles that we feel like, hey, these guys are ready to go. We need to have 3 guards that we feel like these guys are ready to go. You like to have 2 centers, okay, that you feel like you can win any game with. What happens sometimes is you wind up robbing Peter to pay Paul, right? Because maybe your second center is your starting guard, right? And you're always rotating that way, which that's a whole nother animal in itself, and that's why we got to cross-train some guys, okay? But once you get those positions kind of established, I'm not big into, rotating guys just to rotate guys. Now, if a guy can help us win and he can show that he can consistently do that, I'm okay if we want to work a guy in to some series and whatnot. Take reps off of other guys, keep the legs fresh for the fourth quarter and for the second half of the season, by sharing some reps. But, if you look at my history as an offensive line coach, probably leans more the opposite way in that, we're ride or die. The guys are going to the guys that have earned the opportunity to be on the field are going to be on the field. We're not just going to rotate, in other words.
Is cross-training something that you ideally want to wrap up early in camp, and then once you've got to roll, or could it continue into
No, you always got to continue it. You have to have contingency plans, if this, then that.
Right.
And in order to do that, right, you have to give guys reps at times. But, there's been times where we've had to make some moves in games, and, you put a guy in that's traditionally been a center or a tackle, let's say, for instance, and all of a sudden you're going in at guard, and he's like, look, coach, I haven't taken a guard rep since August. You're like, I know.
Yeah.
Figure it out. You know what I mean? But that's why we train guys that way. But you do want to try to, but not at the expense, I guess, of the continuity and the consistency of guys working together, right? So you just try to sneak some reps here and there where you can.